Hey guys, so today we are going to go over the top questions in all of my classes that had issues in Mathspace. So you can see up top on my tab, I have period 2, 4, 7, 8, and 9, algebra 2s, honors, and pre-calc. This very first question, the formula rearranging, that is the top question in every single one of yours classes. So we're definitely going to talk about that one. And just for the good of the group, we're going to talk about the rest as well. Some also kind of overlap. So if they overlap, I'm going to kind of skip those as I move through. But this video will help you with understanding, hopefully with understanding where we might have made some mistakes. So let's start with that converting. So these go back, by the way, they span questions from the solving equations, the multiplying, and with the graphing. So it's not just our most recent, our graphing one. Okay. So in this case, we want to find a formula that converts Celsius into Fahrenheit, knowing this formula. To rearrange the formula, solve for C, you could do which of the following. Okay. So looking at our options here, let's read through some. First thing, it says multiply 5 to all the terms, then subtract 160 from both sides. The last step is to divide by 9. That is completely valid. I can take this whole fraction to get rid, or sorry, I should get rid of the fraction, or I could get rid of the fraction by timesing everything by 5. It'll cancel that out. You're going to be left with this formula. You would subtract subtract 160 and then divide by C, and you do get what they have. Okay, so that is a completely valid answer there. So that works. Second, it says multiply the F by 5, divide it by 9, then subtract 32. Well, that doesn't work because if I multiply by 5, just like I showed before, I have to multiply everything by 5. I can't just choose to multiply the F and leave that 32 around. So B is definitely not an option. And then a third option is something that I would normally do. I would subtract that 32 first. Let me use this pen actually. Right? I can subtract that 32 from both sides because remember the goal is to get C by itself. So then we have F minus 32 equals 9/5. And we could multiply by 5/9, or what they split it into, multiply by 5 and then divide by 9. And that should be 32. And you can see here they have it as the grouping because you're multiplying both pieces by that 5 and then dividing by that 9. So it does work. It does, or it is a valid way of doing it. So really A and C are our only options for that question. Okay, so they were just asking you, how do you solve for C, and looking at the multiple ways of doing that. Okay, so again, that was the top question for all of the classes. So hopefully that cleared you up on that one. For the second question, dealing with literally equations, this one I think kind of threw people off because of the fact that you had to solve for y and y is on the bottom. Okay, well, what you could do is we know we want to multiply by y to get it out of the denominator here. Now, when you multiply, that's going to cancel. I would not distribute. Leave it in this grouping here, because then if I divide the whole thing by h minus k, it's going to work out for me. And you can either leave it in the grouping or not, but this whole thing will go away. And now you have y by itself. So I could write that y equals x divided by h minus k. Again, whether you write the grouping or not, that is just your decision. All right. Let's see what the next one is. All right, this I saw appear a couple times as well. So first of all, they're breaking down the question. So it says, what is the slope and the y-intercept of the line? Well, we should know mx plus b. So your m is the number in front of your x. That's a 1. Our b is -3. So they just are asking you to split up and define each of those parts. So in the second one, your m is -1 and your b is a -3. Oh, hello. Helps if I read the question correctly. It's asking what is the intercepts of the line, not your slope anymore. I apologize. So let's talk about that. Remember, when you want to find your x-intercept, you're going to put a 0 in for your y and solve for your x. So I'm just going to add x to both sides. And I get x equals -3. Okay. Now it says plot the lines of the two equations on the same graph. So you can choose to graph it however you want. I'm going to choose to plot the y-intercept and move my slope. So if I'm at 3, I move up 1 over 4. That's for one equation. Nope, I'm sorry. Let's backtrack. That should be a -3. Up 1 over 1. And then start at -3 again. This time I'm going down 1 over 1. And there's my graph. Okay, and again, I apologize for that confusion. And then it says state the values of x and y, which satisfies both equations. All that means is where do they intersect? So that point, that's a horrible circle, sorry. Where do they intersect at? So it's this point here that they share. So it is the point 0, -3. I know we didn't talk about that. That's systems. We'll get to that. But if it satisfies both equations, that means they share the point. Okay. Let's try the next one. So a little word problem. So we have Patricia and Trisha fundraising for school. Together they raised $658. If Patricia raised 220 more than Trisha, and Trisha raised P amount of dollars, we want to write an equation in terms of P. So everything has to be in P. So Trisha is P. Patricia is 220 more than Trisha. So 220 more than P, if we're saying Trisha is P. So the equation is going to be 658, that's their total, equals the two of those together. And I have 2P here because I have 1P and a second P. We're adding those two values together. Okay. What's 2P? Oh, I'm sorry. And then we want to solve for P. So in order to solve, we all should know how to do that. You would subtract that 220 and then divide it by 2. So P would end up being 219. And finally, calculate how much Patricia raised. Well, if P is 219 and Patricia raised 220 more than that, I would add 220 to the 219 and get 439. Okay. Okay, and the last one here, I'm not going to go through it. It's a very simple one-step equation. To solve for R, you divide by T. So you would have the fraction, R equals D divided by T for that equation. Okay. All right, so let's jump over to period 4's problems. So again, we already talked about that Celsius. So in this case, it says if the following equation has a line with an x-intercept of 3 and a y-intercept of 2, what must the coefficients be? Well, we got to look at this 6 here. So if the x is 3, then I know something times x. So some number times 3 had to get me 6. This was for my x-intercept. Well, that number is going to be 2. So I know 2 is going to go here. To find a y-intercept of 2, same idea. Something times 2 has to equal 6 for my y. Well, that's going to be 3. Okay, so it's kind of working backwards of what we normally do. Like normally we would have 2x equals 6 and 3y equals 6 to find our x and our y. Well, we're just kind of going backwards given those already intercepts. Okay, graphing our lines, we should know this. Y equals 3x plus 1 using the point y as the intercept. Well, you're just dragging the y point to where your y-intercept is, which is 1, and then moving your slope of 3, which means I'm going to count up 3 spaces and over 1 to get my graph. Okay, so maybe you just moved the wrong point. You had to move the one that was y to the y-intercept in order to graph that. Okay, next one, graph by determining any 2 points. Well, it's the same thing. I can graph by using the -2 as my y-intercept and using my slope. I can count up 1, 2, 3 over 1, and there's my second point. As long as you have 2 points, you have a line. Okay, that's all they were asking for those equations. Again, utilizing slope-intercept form here. And plot y equals -7 on a number line. Well, that's just a horizontal line, or in this case, it's y equals 3. So I'm going to drag it, y equals 3. There is no slope. We talked about this on Thursday. If there's no slope, then I'm not going up or down any. I'm just horizontally, oops, if I can draw it perfectly. There we go. Horizontally moving my run each time. Okay, so that was period 4s. Let's jump to period 7s. We already talked about the x-intercept and y-intercepts. That's working backwards. Let's talk about the perimeter problem. So we have a perimeter up here. It says write the perimeter in terms of x. So you're just adding up all your sides right now. So you would have your 8x plus 5x plus 6x. That gives you 19x. So I'm going to fill in as we go. Plus, there's no constant with the 8x. I have a 76 plus 38. That's 114. So it says perimeter equals. I know the perimeter is 171. Well, they just want us to set up that portion of it. Now I can take the 171 and use it to solve, right? I would set up the equation. My pen wants to work. Here we go. 171 equals, equals the 19x plus 114. I would subtract that over, get 57 equals 19x, divide that, and we get x equals 3. I think a lot of people probably were typing 171 equals and it was marking you off there, or you were jumping ahead before you simplified it. Next one. Okay. Cutting a rectangular board. I know there was a lot of questions on this one when we were doing them in class. So the rectangular board has a perimeter of 62 inches. So let's draw this board. We have its length is 5 inches shorter than double the width. So if this is my width, my length is 5 inches shorter than double that. So 2w minus 5 is my length. Well, again, I know these repeat over here. So I'll use that in a little bit. We want the length. We know that's the equation 2w minus 5. Oops, sorry. We want in terms of x. 2x minus 5. Okay. Solve for x now. Okay, we can do that. Add all our sides. So 2x plus a 2x plus another x is 6x. Minus 10 has to equal 62. Okay, add that. 72, x equals 12. Width, plug it back in. Well, 2 times the width So 2 times 12 is 24, minus 5 is 19, is my length. I know a lot of problems when I was walking around was people were jumping ahead here. They weren't typing in terms of X, or they were solving right away. So again, just follow the order in which Mathspace is asking you to do things. And the last question for period 7, we already did that. Graph with y as the intercept. So we talked about that. Okay, period 8. We talked about the Fahrenheit. We talked about graphing. All right, how many solutions does this have? Let's see. So back to a solving question. Well, if I have this and I want to try and solve it, go ahead, just try and solve it. Well, 5x minus x is 4x. 4x equals 5x. I can solve that. 0 equals 1x. X equals 0. That is one solution. X is 0. That is an answer. That's all they're asking. If you got all your letters canceling out, then you'd have either no solution or an infinitely many solution, depending on the problem. Okay. Does negative 9, 12. So they're giving you a point and they're asking you if it falls on the line. Well, all you're simply going to do is plug in the x and y values. I know an x, I know a y. So they're asking, does negative 48 equal negative 7 times 6 minus 6? Well, negative 7 times 6 is a negative 42 minus 6. They do equal. As long as they equal, that means it works. If they didn't equal, then it would be a no. So this is a yes. Okay. We already talked about plotting a single value on a number plane. So let's jump to pre-calc. With this, we talked about all of them, with the exception of this one problem. So for a monic quadratic, now algebra 2, we're going to get to this, but it's fairly simple, so I can show you guys anyway. Solutions mean, where did this come from? So x equals 0 came from just x, right? X minus 0 is where an x would equal 0. X equals 4 comes from x minus 4 equals 0. They're asking you, what equation did you have to solve to get those two solutions? Well, the fact that it says quadratic, that means we're going to multiply these two together. So x times x minus 4, or if we distribute, x squared minus 4x equals 0. I don't know which one they exactly want, but we could try them both. And again, I know algebra 2, you guys didn't have those type questions, but good to see it's coming forward. Okay, hopefully this helped you out. I know it was long, but it's going over everything that were most of your problems. Hopefully it helps you out.